Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/slash Tales from Tech Support. In today's episode, a pair of star-crossed lovers. Link lights? Nope, no link lights. I don't want a new one. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. A pair of star-crossed lovers. Customer. So, then I went to this screen and I did this. Behind me, I hear a sudden familiar whir. Juliet is waking up. Me thinks, oh God, not now. Customer, and that's when I noticed that the data was missing from. My desktop monitor flickers to BSOD blue, then goes dark for a moment, and then I'm staring at a close-up of snowflakes, one of the Windows 10 lock screen images. My headset is silent. I can no longer see nor hear my customer. Me thinks, crap. I hurriedly pound the control key and log in. The online meeting resumes. Customer decided it was best to restart the. Oh, good, he didn't seem to notice I was gone. I try my best to pick up what the customer has been saying, while I spare a glance over my shoulder to glare at the laptop behind me, which has fallen silent. Juliet has nodded off again. Hello, my name is Mercury, and I do vendor tech support for industrial/business software. But today's tale isn't about something crazy our software or customers did. It's the tragic tale of love between a middle-aged desktop and an elderly insomniac laptop. Most of the time, I'm attached to my desk by a chain forged from email, quenched in customer tears. I don't do much traveling. So I, like the rest of my department, have a desktop. For the purposes of this story, we'll call that desktop Romeo. Romeo's a perfectly average desktop. His days of scampering up balconies are a bit behind him, but he's not so old that he's forgotten how to handle his sword. Or some other non-phallic metaphor. Anyway, I do the lion's share of my work with Romeo. However, I am a manager, and sometimes I find myself in meetings where the fate of the world is decided. Either that or we argue about whether QA or support should test how many polylines a customer should be putting on a display. These meetings can be something like war, long period of boredom punctuated by moments of no, sorry, it's just all boredom. And for that, I also have a laptop. A sh*TTY afterthought of a laptop that IT graciously gave to me when someone else upgraded and left this behind. My laptop is not top priority for the company, given as how it's basically just a remote desktop shell used approximately 3 hours out of the week. It originally had Windows 8.0 on it. I had to beg for 6 months to get it upgraded to 8.1. The idea of upgrading it further to Windows 10 gets me laughed out of the room. We will call my laptop Juliet. Because she's nearly 14 years old and a bit stupid. Juliet has insomnia. She's had it for years. She's not the only laptop I've met with insomnia. It seems to be the laptop version of gray hair and a sense of entitlement. If you're not familiar with it, laptops experience insomnia by randomly waking from a sleeping state when no one has so much as breathed on the mouse or keyboard. I'm familiar with the process of looking through the logs to find out what woke the laptop and turning that off, but for some reason Juliet never recorded what woke her up. I turned off every wake mechanism I could find except the power button, but the old girl just keeps waking up. So in lieu of fixing it, I learned to just ignore it. Most days Juliet sits quietly at my desk while I work with Romeo. Once a week or so, for no apparent reason, her fan will just start to whir up. Most times it'll run for a few seconds and then shut off on its own. If I notice the fan going for a while, I'll just lift her lid for a second and drop it back down, which is enough to send her back to sleep. We lived like that for years, the three of us. But about 2 months ago things got weird. Yes, it can get weirder than a threesome with Shakespearean computers. I was working along, minding my own business, and everyone else's in the department. I am the boss, you know, when Romeo's monitor turned blue. It was that shade of blue that makes your innards quiver. They say that most people's dreams aren't in color, but this was the blue sheen of IT nightmares. I stopped breathing. The wash of color lasted for only a moment, then the screen went black. I started sweating. "O Romeo! Wherefore art thou?" Then suddenly, I was looking at a picture of brightly colored boats washed up on a beach. I blinked. This was the lock screen. My brain switched gears from horror to confusion. I logged in. Everything was right where I left it. My pulse slowly returned to normal. That was weird, I thought. I asked if anyone around me had had computer problems. Everyone else was fine. Since nothing was amiss, I shrugged, got back to work, and put the event out of my mind. About a week later, the same thing happened out of nowhere: bowel liquefying blue, heart-stopping black, then a pretty sunset. As I stared at the sunset and blinked, my brain started doing mental dumpster diving, and I realized something. About 10 seconds before Romeo had a seizure, I'd heard Juliet's fan spin up. Furthermore, I'd heard it the first time, too. I had been so used to hearing her fan that my brain had automatically dumped that data into the audio trash next to the hall door opening, someone sneezing, and that cell phone across the office that makes the chirping sound from Star Trek every few hours. But now that I was reviewing the mental logs, it was definitely the same both times. Juliet rolled over in her sleep, then 10 seconds later Romeo seized. When it happened that second time, I started thinking about what on earth was connecting those two machines. They were logged in with the same domain account, but I couldn't think of anything the domain would do that. I mean, even if this was an effect of some policy getting pushed down, what sort of policy locks one computer and wakes up another? How could Juliet even receive a new policy in her sleep? And why now? Juliet has been an insomniac forever. They were plugged into the same outlet, but two different surge protectors. Was this some sort of power surge overpowering the surge protectors that hit both Romeo and Juliet differently? A brief power drain that caused Romeo to half shut down and Juliet to go on battery power and wake up? It kept happening, always the same sequence of events: fan, blue, black, canyon shot, or beach or pastoral wilderness. It was F***ing annoying. I called building maintenance. They came and checked my outlet and found nothing wrong. I called IT. They had no clue. They offered to replace Juliet, but the only laptop they had available was even more senile. Juliet had her quirks, but at least I knew what they were and how to work around them. I wasn't eager to invite some other medieval laptop into my life. The devil, you know, and so on. So I offered to do some tests before anyone took drastic action. I banished Juliet. I took her and her surge protector and plugged them in across the room from Romeo. What's that? Romeo was one who was banished in the play? Yeah, well, why don't you try moving a desktop tower, 2 monitors, cabling, keyboard, mouse, etc. just for the sake of a running gag and tell me how you like it? We ran like that for a week or two, and the problem seemed to stop. I kept waiting to hear if Juliet could wake up without Romeo seizing, but I never heard Juliet. Not a whisper. Apparently her banishment bed was more comfy than the one she'd shared with Romeo on my desk. Maybe Romeo has wandering elbows at night. Or maybe she'd taken some sort of protest potion to put her into a coma. Hell with reuniting with her lover, I think she took that potion just to get some damn uninterrupted sleep. I gave up waiting for Juliet to wake up and decided to try test number 2. Maybe it wasn't the outlet that was the problem, maybe it was Juliet's old and crappy surge protector. So I left Juliet's surge protector across the room and reunited her with Romeo. I plugged her into the same surge protector that Romeo used. A couple days go by and the issue happens again. Aha. I thought. It's not the surge protector. It's something about Romeo and Juliet being plugged into the same outlet. Maybe Juliet has degraded to the point where her power supply is somehow faulty, and she's draining more voltage than she should when she wakes up, causing Romeo to lose power briefly enough to lock himself. I'm not an electrical engineer, I have no idea if that's anywhere in the realm of reality. All I know is that when Juliet was across the room, this didn't happen, so I rebanished Juliet and reported my findings to IT. I figured the next step was that other laptop. Shudder, I told them it wasn't that big of a deal. I'd just leave Juliet plugged in across the room. But if some extra dollars come into the budget and they found it in their hearts to get me a brand new machine instead of some hand-me-down, I'd be here. A couple of weeks after I had re-banished Juliet, I was doing my usual work with Romeo when I heard it. Across the room, Juliet woke up. And 10 seconds later, Romeo seized. I stared in disbelief at Juliet. From across the room, these star-crossed lovers were somehow touching each other. Defeated, I spun my chair around, logged back into Romeo, and started writing up another letter to IT about how I hadn't solved the problem after all, and I had no idea what to try next. Then my fingers paused mid-keystroke. Something in my brain had been dumpster diving again. It had found a 2, and then a 2, and was holding one in each hand, considering. The week before, I'd attended an internal summit. I'd basically spent the entire week away from my desk with Juliet. As usual, I'd been using her for remote desktopping into Romeo. I had a habit of just closing Juliet's lid when I had to get up for a break or something. When I opened her up again, I was used to having to log in twice, once into Juliet, and then again into the session to Romeo. But I had noticed that week that I only had to log in once. The connection to Romeo logged in automatically. That was a pleasant change. I'd thought less typing. 2 and 2 make. I lifted my hands from Romeo's keyboard, letter to IT half written. I wheeled my office chair over to Juliet, lifted her lid, and logged in. I looked over at Romeo while Juliet loaded. Romeo went blue, then black, then showed the lock screen. I looked down. On Juliet's screen, I saw my half-written IT letter. 4. Some update of Windows or our domain policies had suddenly allowed Juliet to remember her session to Romeo when she hadn't been able to before. So now, whenever she insomniated, she would have just enough time to snag my desktop session away from Romeo before she fell back into dreamless slumber. I deleted my letter to IT and wrote a new one to tell them the solution. I need to make sure I fully closed my remote desktop session before putting Juliet to sleep. Link lights? Nope, no link lights. Had a ticket for a user whose laptop no longer charged or was able to utilize the USB-C dock. PC is a Dell Latitude 7480, dock is the Dell WD-19. I am not a fan of either due to the design of the USB-C cable and plug. It just sticks out too far. And the Dell batteries. Laptops warranted for 4 years, batteries for 1. But that is a whole other issue. Our team of 2 is responsible for support for more than 1,500 users in 12 different offices in the Midwest region of the US. A woman who is approaching 70 from one of the remote offices calls in because she could no longer use her external monitors, KB or mouse. She was also not able to remove her PC from the dock, or it would power off immediately. I informed her she would need to ship the laptop to our office, so I could get it repaired. She had broken the USB-C port on her laptop, as others could use her same dock and everything worked. She was sent a loaner laptop, and we were walking her through getting logged into it, and it required her to plug the Ethernet cable into the laptop so her profile could be built. This is where the problem came, and it wasn't getting a LAN connection. I told her to plug an Ethernet cable into the wall, and asked her to verify she was getting link lights where the Ethernet cable, or as she called it, the big phone cable, plugged into the laptop. I also let her know she needed to push it in hard to hear and feel the click. No link lights. We went through rep-lugging both ends and checking. No link lights. We tried a different cable, and by now, she has gone and gotten a couple more sets of eyes as hers were bothering her, and she didn't want to wear her glasses. Okay, that's fine. No link lights. I am repeatedly asking them to look into the laptop socket where the Ethernet cable plugs in and see if there are lights. No link lights. By this time, others have stopped in and were talking, and I could hear them all saying they cannot see any lights. Speakerphones are wonderful. So I asked one more time for someone to physically pick up the laptop and verify there were any lights where the cable plugged in. I hear from one of the newcomers, "Yep, there are lights there, one flashing, one solid." The rest of the crew, "Oh, we thought you meant on the wall." Turns out the message she was getting on the laptop was not account not found but invalid password. Remember the part of not wanting to wear her glasses. Was on that phone call for 45 minutes. I don't want a new one. I'll keep it short if I can. We had just returned to our place of work after over a year due to social distancing. A user came to my office complaining that their laptop wouldn't connect to the internet or print. It turns out this machine hadn't been upgraded to Win 10 prior to the lockdown, and was therefore no longer compatible with my internet filtering system and our hold print system. I explained this to the user, and said not to worry, I can back up your data and upgrade your current machine to Win 10, and let you carry on as normal. I was backed up on jobs and explained I wouldn't be able to do this for at least a few days. They are more than welcome to borrow one of 30 brand new laptops in the meantime. The user scoffed and said they want their current one as they don't like the look of the much newer machines. I shrugged and said suit yourself. 2 days later, user and their management come into the office raging, saying they haven't been able to work for 2 whole days. I was actually quite taken back by this as I hadn't been used to face-to-face stupidity for some time. I thoroughly explained the situation to their management. They immediately turned to the user and asked them to leave the room. Management thoroughly apologized and grabbed one of the spare laptops and went on their way. No idea what happened to user, can't say I care either.